Good evening, everyone. Welcome to KBVR Corvallis. I am Alex Luther, the OMN sports editor, and today I've got joining me
Soren Carr here.
Welcome to the Beaver Sports Radio Show. We're super excited to give you what has been, dare I say, an interesting week in Oregon State sports.
Epic.
Absolutely. We are looking at what has been a very interesting weekend heading into Fall Family Weekend. We've got some really great things for you. So, Soren, how's your last few days within OMN sports and Oregon State sports been for you?
Monday evening was certainly special. We got a solid team on the Oregon State women's game versus Team USA. That was incredible.
Oh, yeah. I just got to say, really proud of everyone here at the Barrow and anyone who was involved with KBVR, anyone who was involved with any of our multimedia. Man, we sent a really great crew over there to cover that game, and y'all rocked it. And
as did you.
Thanks. But who gets to say that they watched Olympians play on their home court?
Just casually.
Right.
You know, it's no biggie.
And the cool thing, which I was thinking during this, is their tour is all about like top 10 teams, top 5 teams. And this November tour has 4 teams. It has Stanford, Oregon, Oregon State, and Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. What's fantastic is you got to remember that this is a gold medal winning team. Like, they've got it. They're going to
6 in a row.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to win. We're hoping to see them win more gold medals. Yeah. And then on comparison of that, they're playing against the best women's basketball teams in the country. And one of them is going to be the national title holder. Like, you are watching national title holders, watching someone along this route is going to be it. Cough, cough. We're hoping it's Oregon State. But at some point, they're going to play a team on this, because they're going to add more games to this tour, where they're playing teams that it's very likely they're going to win a national title. So you've got a national title winning team or a national title contending team, at least with these schools.
So far, yeah. I mean, Stanford in a shootout lost 95-80. They were consistent. They contended with them in the first half. Oregon State, obviously, much more defensive-minded team under Scott Rueck, but sort of they expanded that lead in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. I mean, significantly, but we were in the game for most of it.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun to watch.
It's very interesting because watching, you can kind of tell you're like, they weren't going for that. It's okay. But also it's cool to get to see, them scrambling for the ball or working to get that shot, or you see them run a really great play. And that it just so happens that you're playing against an Olympian and the Olympian happens to block it. Those plays, in a few weeks, are going to start to matter. And it's going to start to be really interesting to watch them play against teams that are their skill level.
I mean, and those players are going to be taking these women's spots in the future as well.
Oh, yeah.
And we're seeing it. I mean, even in the game, you weren't expecting it as much, but you saw their coach getting on his feet a little more.
Yeah.
Then, Asia Wilson was getting a little chippy in there. Sue Bird taking it seriously as usual. Diana Taurasi showing why they're two of the best of all time. But it was a competitive game. I mean, they weren't.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't appear to be letting it up on them.
No, it definitely started to pour on. And it was just phenomenal to get to see. To get to say, we're watching these Olympians play. We're watching gold medal winning and people who are some of the best female athletes in the world get to play. And that we're seeing also a really amazing, one of the best Oregon State women's basketball teams we've seen in the last few years. That's so well balanced. It was really amazing to get to see kind of that balance between the two and see them battle it out on the court.
Speaking of balance, I truly believe, despite the youthful nature of our post players and the true freshmen coming in, who were fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
Taylor Jones
Kennedy
Brown. Unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. But top to bottom, this might be the most stacked squad that Scott Rueck's had.
Oh, yeah. So I was talking to a friend of mine who was a little bit older than I was, and she said the year before we would have been freshmen here is where they went to the Final Four. That year was really good. That was pretty tough to beat. But I think you're right. So what's really great about this team is you've got a good balance between, like I said, you have really seasoned guards in Michaela Pivic and in Destiny Slocum. Destiny Slocum even being a redshirt, so she's got another year under her belt ready to go. We're going to see hopefully a healthy Kat Tudor come back this season. She didn't play in the game versus Team USA. I got to assume that's from their own wanting to keep her healthy and not wanting her to risk furthering any more injuries, just trying to sustain her so when she starts to play, she's 100%. But you've got that balance of some of those really strong leaders. We've got Aaliyah Goodman who's been rocking it.
She surprised me. I
Every
know
year
that she
surprises
played
me.
I know she played in a summer squad with Team USA.
Oh, yeah.
and you could see her intensity on both ends.
Yes.
She was relentless.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she looks like she's running a marathon out there, but she wouldn't slow down.
Exactly.
It was incredible.
That's the fun thing, too, is they were playing against Olympians. The speed level is just so different, but it's a good conditioning moment because they're going to be playing. You got to think that Oregon State is in what could be considered the most difficult conference for women's basketball.
Certainly.
That there's been analysts who've said this is potentially the first year that 3 1 seeds could go to the tournament. 3 of the 4 could come from one conference.
The same conference, yeah.
And in that discussion are Oregon, Stanford, UCLA, and Oregon State. So
Arizona State even in there.
Yeah, even
They're
Arizona
sneaky.
State and USC plays really scrappy when they come wherever they're at. They can pull out some really interesting wins. So it's tough. It's not like you're playing in a conference that's not strong in the sport. You're playing in arguably the toughest conference. So I think it was good for them to play against Olympians and see, okay, yeah, this could be the tone we're setting. We're going to be playing against really tough teams all year. And that doesn't necessarily mean that if they want, because they have the potential, obviously all these teams have the potential to be the national title winning team. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to win every game against Stanford or U of O or UCLA. If they split, they're in a really great spot.
Yeah.
You win at home against those teams, you lose away, then you're even then you're at a good spot because you're splitting, you're still in that top piece. And then it's just going to come down to, because you got to play everybody once you make it to the tournament, who's able to like lose out earlier, and you got to hope it's got to be somebody else before you.
Yeah. And something about any sport you think of, it kind of goes unmentioned in a way, but I believe it takes a little bit of luck always. I mean, not only the ball bouncing in the hoop at times, but injuries, sustaining that consistency throughout the season. It's just impressive and almost improbable what UConn's done. Obviously, we're not comparing it to that, but the fact that they can stay healthy is a testament to the trainers and everyone involved.
Absolutely.
But it really just shows how much of a cohesive unit the entire program has to be for them to come out successful.
Yes.
But
Speaking of cohesive, something that's super interesting to me, and I think you see a difference with this with other sports that Oregon State has, is that every single one, I think maybe one was a freshman who didn't, but the rest of the team is all wearing the same shoe. It's the smallest of detail.
I did not catch that.
For Oregon State, but it's the smallest of detail. But you start looking and you realize, because they're given a few different pairs of shoes for basketball shoes from sponsorships and all that. But everyone except one player was, and I think that must have been a mistake, is wearing the same shoe. And I got to think some of it is pressure from Ruick, but at the same time, I think some of that's coming from the team. They have this we are family vibe. They're focused on that cohesion all the way down to that nitty gritty piece of we're all going to wear the same shoe. We're going out with the same foot forward. We're here as a team. And you don't see that with sports. I'm going to pick on men's basketball a little bit. You see a little bit more of individual play, a little bit more
egos getting in the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You see the different shoes, but something as small as that detail speaks volumes about how the team operates and about what they expect from their players.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing. I was noticing that. I was like, that, even just that one little thing, that gives me hope, because that's a big thing. It's a big, it's different also than like Oregon, with like you've got one of the best players in women's basketball with Sabrina Ionescu, but you have that one player that is kind of built around.
Yeah.
And it's different when you build a program around someone, because if something happens or they're not on their game, it's much tougher to win. Not to say the rest of their team is going to do amazing, but it's tougher when you have that. Oregon State is really well balanced. They don't have a lot of ego on that court.
Well, you see it in successful programs or professional groups that are prolonged for such, like, they sustain this level of excellence for such a long period of time. An example I always like to think of, not a fan of them, however, the Patriots.
Yeah.
I saw a quote recently, you might have seen this. It might have been Rodney Harrison speaking, former safety for them years ago, but he said Tom Brady's not even treated like a god or anything in them.
Yeah.
They're treated equally, top to bottom, not like it's a communist program or anything of that sort. But I mean, like, you even see it in football this year. The warm-ups are different compared to what they used to be.
Yeah.
Every player's in a line. They're doing it together.
Yes.
They're just together. I mean, it's a simple facet that you may overlook in football or in sports in general, but it's something that as a team, understanding that you're doing the same thing as your teammates, your family.
Yeah.
Going through that.
I like that we're touching on football, but we've got a long discussion ahead of us on football.
Do.
So let's put a pin in that and we'll come back to that. What other updates have you got for us on Oregon State sports?
I've got some weekly sports updates coming at you right now. With wrestling, the Oregon State's men's wrestling squad, known as one of the better ones in the country this year, although they are not in the top 25 to start the season, they have some high expectations. They begin their season on Saturday, November 11th at the Mountaineer Invitational hosted by Appalachian State. Men's basketball, of course, kicked off their season last night with an 87-67 convincing win over Cal State Northridge. Really good win there. That's a team that could make the tournament from their division.
Yeah.
Trace Tinkle, of course, named to the Dr. J. Julius Erving Small Forward Award watch list. And the women's team, looking into their 2019-2020 season, they officially begin as number 7 team in the land when they host the first round of the WNIT, Women's NIT, this Saturday evening, the 9th, when UC Irvine visits Gill.
Yeah, man, like not only you got to think they went straight from Team USA to, hey, why not host the WNIT? Let's do it. Like, let's rock it. So it's going to be, I think they're going to have a tough schedule, but I love that start. It's a great way to look at it. A lot of nice publicity for the basketball programs thus far. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All those are really great opportunities. That's the other thing about the Team USA. Everybody was not sitting there waiting to see, is Oregon State going to win? But it was definitely an opportunity to say, hey, we're watching Olympians and they're getting the press. I think it was really great. It's an opportunity for them. I was thinking to travel more. They're playing against diverse teams, diverse stadiums. They're not in the same place. They're really changing up that routine a lot to try and season themselves for once they really hit the road and they start playing in Brazil. It's less for the skill and more for the environment.
Of course, just coming off their season as well.
Yeah, and so I think that was really good. And it was also, it's bringing great PR for Oregon State. Oregon State
which is huge.
Has already been, rising in the ranks in this women's basketball, making at least the Sweet 16 for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Ruick gets major credit for that, of having, losing season after losing season. And all of a sudden now we're a powerhouse for this. It's an amazing transition.
The fact that, growing up, it wasn't as commonly noted, women's basketball, for all of that unfortunate note. But nowadays, people who I wouldn't assume to be paying attention to women's basketball are seriously asking about it, friends and whatnot. They're sliding up with the story of seeing they played Team USA. No way, that's awesome. They know the team is legit. They know they're one of the top 2 teams probably in our school behind baseball.
Yep.
It's fantastic to see. A lot of fun. We're going to carry on now into men's golf. The men's golf team is number 14 in the country, the highest ranking they've been in over a decade.
Dang.
As they are in the Bay Area for the historic tournament of Poppy Hills Golf Club, which ends their fall schedule. Sophomore Carson Berry, after winning here a couple weeks ago, was named the Pac-12 Golfer of the Month as well.
Wow.
Big stuff coming from them. And the women are ranked 21 in the country, and they are currently in Hawaii. Join that sun.
That's going to be nice in November.
Oh, my goodness. And they are currently in 7th place out of 13 with a very seasoned group of teams there. The men's soccer team sits at 7-5-1, coming off back-to-back wins at San Diego State in overtime and at UCLA, a ranked opponent in a shootout 3-2. They have 3 remaining games on the schedule, hosting ranked Stanford, ranked Cal, and ranked UW.
All
November
at home,
7th,
correct?
10th, and 15th, all at home.
Yeah.
And the women, of course, after that sizzling start, have simmered a bit at 10-6-2. However, they still have 3 consecutive losses. They were to difficult opponents, to Arizona, then at Arizona, then home to UCLA and USC. UCLA was number 2 early this year, I believe. They have 1 remaining game, though, in the schedule versus Oregon, a Civil War matchup at Paul Lorenz Field here in Corvallis tomorrow evening, Thursday, November 7th. Be there.
Correct.
Shout out to their massive improvements this year under Kagan.
Oh, They've just grown. Even with a little bit of the slowing off, starting with one of the best starts, not one of the best start in program history. And beyond that is just phenomenal. And we play in a tough conference for women's soccer just as well. So it makes sense that they played really well. They're not losing extensively. They're playing more games and not getting shut out. The amount of points that they've scored this year has been astronomical compared to last year. They have Bridget Skiba in that box blocking shot after shot after
She's
shot.
Been fantastic.
So that combination of being able to bounce a lot more, they're seeing less shutouts, they're seeing a lot more blocks. So again, giving that another year, it's going to be really great to watch them develop from the leaps and bounds they had last year to this year to what next year's going to look like.
The amount of programs improving this fall alone, football's, of course, one that you can pick out.
Oh, yeah.
But within these other sports, such as golf that I mentioned, both squads ranked in the top 25. That's huge in such a competitive conference. Soccer, big one. Volleyball, easily the toughest conference in the country.
Yes.
They've had an up and down year, however they are looking up. But it's just a testament to the changing nature almost. Like there's something in the water here, and it's...
You can feel it. You walk around campus and you feel like you get the kind of tingly.
Last couple of years, maybe it's just because it's football season, but definitely different. I mean, with men's basketball looking like they can make the tournament, women's basketball, of course.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of expectations, especially with Trace Tinkle coming back.
Yes.
And Peyton Destra being able to be healthy. I think that there's a lot of expectations of saying, hey, you know, you might have lost a player or two, might have lost it in Stephen Thompson Jr., but from what I've heard, Tinkle's pretty excited about his recruiting class.
He looked good last night.
Exactly.
25, 10, and 7.
See, like that right there, like being able to say that you can come off of losing a player as key and as strong as Stephen Thompson Jr. and still being able to pull off really amazing stats. I think that's going to start to make a difference. But I think also it's really tough. People forget how long basketball season is. Basketball season goes for a long time. It does. They've been playing exhibition games for the last couple weeks. And then they play here. They've got a few games here at home in the next few weeks as we go through November. And then they hit the road for most of November, for most of December.
Iowa State's a sneaky school.
Oh, yeah.
Usually ranked.
Yeah, so they're playing tough schools. They're going to start to hit the road, and they have multiple road games that they have to travel for during December, and then they come back, and right off the bat, they got to start back into Pac-12 play. So
that's one of the difficulties of basketball there in NCAA basketball.
Yeah, so I think a hot start is good, but I think what we're going to need to see is stamina this season, which was an issue last season too, was we saw a lot of games be lost by 3-4 points.
13 games last season lost by 4 or less.
Yeah, exactly. So you're looking at, you got to have the stamina not just in the game, but in the season. And if you start to lose the stamina in the season, you're going to lose the stamina in the game. So hopefully that's something that they're really focusing on, is how do we extend that success? Yeah. How do we make that past that kind of hump that you get right at the beginning of February, when you've still got another at least month and maybe a little bit into March of really tough, like very important conference games.
Yeah. You know, being able to sit in on one of their practices, noticing Tinkle, he looks a little leaner after that injury a couple years ago. Yeah. Obviously that can kill you mentally. The fact that he's bounced back from that alone is impressive. But he just looks more athletic, a little slimmer.
Yeah.
Looks a little tighter in general. And the rest of the team looks like they're really ready to build around that, including Kyler Kelly, who I think can be a major force.
Man, let me tell you.
Yeah.
That is one JUCO guy that I think that everybody is like bowing down to Tinkle. Thank you, God, for getting us that one. Man, Tinkle.
It's a big season for Tinkle.
Was the hero there. Yeah, I think there's definitely...
He's on the hot seat here. Right?
I was going to say, so what's interesting is he did get his contract extended. He is extended through, I think it's 22, 23, something along those lines. But the question is still, can he make the team get over that last hump? That last hump is a big deal. Getting over those last few issues to be able to make it to the tournament. Mm-hmm. You know, at this point, we're not asking for a national title winning game team. We're not asking for, Sweet 16 final four. We're just looking for, can we make the tournament, especially in a conference that has some really strong teams and can be really competitive.
Maintain like a consistent tournament bound team. Yeah.
I think that's what people are expecting. Because even with the women's team, nobody's saying they need to win a national title. We just want to continue to see them excel and win a couple tournament games, and anything else beyond that we just get to be really excited about, which is the difference with baseball. Baseball has an enormous level of pressure, and I think that it's going to be a very different year this year. The team's not even ranked heading into like their fall season or even going into the future season. They're not even ranked in the top 25. I think those coaching changes made a big difference. But a couple years ago, when they first made it in 2017 to the national tournament, everybody was like, it's like, we've got this. It's going to be really good, really amazing team. And then they lost, and it was a huge disappointment. They came back with a fire under their seats. They were hot. I know that one of the things that they used to say was the team didn't say, let's go. That was their chant together every time when they would break their huddle was finish. that was their goal for the season. That was not told to them by anybody. That was not something that they were like, you must finish the season. It was finished because they felt they had something they had left to finish from the last year. And so that just made their whole battle back from that season that much better. But I think that some of the other teams need to start to build that. It's not just, oh, we made it. Oh, it's not just, oh, we had this season, or we did kind of better this season than we did last season. I think it needs to be finishing better than you were the season before.
Of course. And there's one thing about Oregon State Corvallis fans, it's not the sense that they're just grateful to be there.
Right.
We do have some really just solid fans, but they're not okay with mediocrity either.
Yeah.
But they understand where we are in the conference and in the country. Yeah. And the fact that we have those areas, baseball, for example, is one of those quality teams, up and down with other sports. But right now, women's basketball is one of those. For a while, is football. Basketball, obviously, in the 80s and 70s. They make their shifts in schools, and Oregon State's one that no matter what, there are a couple programs in there that are consistently at the top. Women's gymnastics also.
Yes, yeah. And I think that's super interesting, is it's a very unique fan base in that it's not a wide one. It's not a very well recognized. But it's one who they're not fair weather fans. They will stick it out. They will be there for the team. Even if they can't make it, which we would always love to have more fans. It makes it more exciting for us. But beyond that, it's just fans who are dedicated to the school and see that there's something different about our programs that puts us ahead. Maybe not in money, maybe not in recruits, but in a lot of grit and a lot of things that make sports phenomenal, because you can have all the money in the world, but you can't teach grit, you can't teach competitiveness, you can't buy those things. So being able to build programs around those really core characteristics are what people empathize with and really like to see on the field.
One more note about that is I just wrote an article on Jaden Grant, and one of the things he emphasized was he was originally committed to Oregon for football.
Yes, I remember you saying that.
Decided to switch over to Oregon State after one tour just because he liked the underdog mentality that the program really, they took it on. They said this is us. They accepted it. They were understanding of their place, but it was interesting to hear that. It's fun. Yeah.
Do you have any more updates for us before we kind of move on to our next topic?
One more. Women's volleyball team sitting at 9-14, coming off of 3 straight losses, unfortunately. However, they continue a 4-game tear against opponents ranked in the top 25. 2 of those already happened. 2 home matchups against University of Washington and Washington State tomorrow, November the 7th, and Saturday, November the 10th.
Alrighty, thanks for that update. I think we're going to take a little bit of break here in the studio. We'll be back with you all pretty shortly to give you more updates on Oregon State sports.
Hey Beavers, let's talk about sleep. Did you know 2/3 of students experience extreme drowsiness in class, and that poor sleep habits can negatively impact your GPA? It's recommended to get between 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep each night. Blue light emitted from electronic devices hinders the production of melatonin, the hormone that readies you for sleep. If you have trouble falling asleep, try turning off screens at least 1 hour before going to bed, avoiding caffeine before 2 p.m., and maintaining a regular sleep schedule. CAPS wishes you a better sleep tonight.
I feel like I'm Americanizing everything I say now. Let's keep it British. This is KBVR Corvallis. I'm Jack. We're on 88.7 FM and worldwide. Do I have to say the 88.7 or is that optional? Okay, cool. I think it kind of works that,
KBVR FM is supported in part by the domain Corvallis, located on 4240 Northwest Dunaway Drive. The domain offers student living that is available for lease fall 2020. For more information, the website is domaincorvallis.com. KBVR FM is supported in part by Corvallis Parks and Recreation, who will be presenting the musical Next to Normal at the Majestic Theater on November 1st through November 17th. More information is available at majestic.org.
Do you want to learn how to fix your broken items? Bring them to the Fall Repair Fair on Wednesday, November 13th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the OSU's store. Volunteers will help you learn how to repair your belongings. Attend demos to learn more about repairing things like appliances, electronics, housewares, clothing, computers, and bicycles. Drop-in demos will also be offered each hour. Repair fairs are sponsored by the OSU Waste Watchers, helping you save money, gain skills, and reduce waste.
Support for KBVR comes from First Alternative Co-op. First Alternative has been providing the community with local organic groceries for 50 years. More information can be found on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter with hashtag FirstAltCoop. The National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo for short, is a fun, seat-of-your-pants approach to creative writing. On November 1st, participants begin working towards the goal of writing a 50,000-word novel by 11:59 p.m. on November 30th. On Tuesday, October 29th, the Corvallis-Benton County Public Library will host a kickoff party in the main meeting room to celebrate NaNoWriMo. Writers aged 13 and older of all skill levels are welcome. Additionally, on every Saturday in November from 2 to 5 p.m., the library will also host NaNoWriMo writing sessions. Writers may drop in or out anytime. Bring your preferred writing tools and work on your novel surrounded by other local writers. There will also be games, refreshments, and a raffle for prizes at each session. These events are sponsored by the Friends of the Library. To learn more about NaNoWriMo, please visit www.nanowrimo.org. Please contact the library at 541-766-6793 for more information. For disability accommodations, please call 541-766-6928 at least 48 hours before the event.
Alrighty, we are back in the studio with the Beaver Sports Radio Show. I'm Alex Luther.
And I am Soren Carr.
And we are ready to move on to the talk of the town.
Football. Foosball.
Man, we've got some stuff to catch up on. This is a quite interesting state in Oregon State football.
Mm-hmm.
So before we dive in, do you want to give us a little bit of a quick recap of what happened down in Tucson?
Be honored to do that. So, in case you were living underneath a rock, Oregon State won last week at Arizona. They are 3-0 in road conference play this season. They won 56-38 at Arizona. They put up 56 points, if I did not mention either. Their defense was steady, other than a few blemishes in the second half to let them get back into the game. It was a solid performance. We had Jamar Jefferson back. Trayvon Bradford was back.
Yeah.
Offense was cooking. Defense looked good. Hamilcar Rashed Jr.
That man.
He is leading the country in tackles for loss and second in sacks at the moment.
That stat alone.
Unbelievable.
What shocks me is when people want to talk, especially because people talked a lot of kind of crap about the team. We're kind of talking down, other teams. Defensively, especially at the beginning of the season. And at this point, we're looking, and not only do we have national ranked on offense with Isaiah Hodgins and with Luton winning Pac-12
Luton's
honors.
been solid, yeah.
We're seeing one of the best defensive ends in the country.
We could say backfield and wide receiver as well.
Oh yeah, and so it's just frustrating, I think, for a lot of fans when they look at how well they've played in some of these road games,
and you think won two more. I've got to stop saying that though.
Exactly, and it's just a couple of those things where we had a couple missed field goals in those games. That field goals were really the difference maker.
Why we're switching a kicker there?
Yeah, I think it's because everybody was sitting around like, man, we're looking and seeing. It would have been, just like 2 or 3 field goals in total, and it would have been a very different season. Very, very different. So I think a lot of people are frustrated at that, but I think also everybody's really excited.
Yeah.
This was, at least even for me, this was way, way exceeded any expectations I had. I don't know about you.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a fun fact here.
Alrighty, hit me.
They continue their lack of turnovers, obviously, they've only committed 2 for the entire season. Through 8 games, Oregon State has committed 8.
Knock on wood, man.
I'm knocking on wood. I'm not jinxing it. I swear.
Okay.
I'm just explaining.
You're just showing stats. You're just sharing stats.
The next best is San Diego State with 4. They're ranked. Not trying to jinx anything, but there has never been an NCAA team to go through a season without losing a fumble. We have yet to lose a fumble.
I wish you hadn't said that. I wish you hadn't said that.
We need to make the audience aware of this.
I think that's true. I appreciate your journalistic integrity, because the little superstitious fan inside of me is like, oh man,
I want to think that too,
man.
But it's
that's pretty impressive. It's been a very impressive season, beyond the fact that it's 500. The fact that it's
4-4.
500. I do think some people need to understand, though. I'm pretty sure that the Cal Poly game does not count for bowl eligibility.
That is one thing I've been asked about as well, because it depends, though, on however many teams have made it over 500 at 6-6 or above. And depending on that schedule, if there's an FCS team involved, that's how they decide whether or not. For example, Washington State made a bowl game a few years ago at 5-7. They did play an FCS opponent. However, just the way that it worked out, that's what happened. So
yeah. So there is a potential, but I think some people are thinking that's a solid win when it's like, that win kind of doesn't help you as much.
They're not.
But the fact, even just from a record standpoint, because there's been games that we've lost against FCS schools. There's been seasons where we lose all 3 of our non-conference games at the beginning of the season. And unfortunately, those were 2 of our losses. But the fact that we're 3-2 in conference play, like I feel like I have to pinch myself. Like, are we still in the same same weird universe? Because it's been a long time. Even against that huge upset against Oregon in 2016, that game was not even on what was one of their best seasons. It was just that luck bit that you talked about. It started to rain and you felt the tide change. You could feel it in the student section. You could feel it all over the stadium.
And hopefully we're seeing that this weekend on Parents Weekend.
This would be a good game for it, let me tell you.
Good game to show up. Nationally televised game.
Oh, yeah.
Against the hated UW.
I know. But what's even, so like that's how much we're starting to get recognized is, I think people are starting to listen. Okay, they're really not as bad as they used to be. They weren't
supposed to be televised in this game.
And the other
At
thing
least
too.
in FS1.
Yeah, and the other thing too is we still even have a shot to be on FS1 against Arizona State.
Yeah.
So if we pull off the win against Washington, we're on Fox Sports. We're on prime time again. Yeah. So at that point, you're like, are we like for real right now? For real? Like 3 home games on FS1? That hasn't happened in a long time.
Another cool thing here. Kirk Herbstreit, of course, analyst, played in college. He's on College Game Day as well. After every week, he has his top 5 best teams, best players, and best coaches. Jonathan Smith was listed at number 5, first time in that, as well as we were against UCLA in week 4 or 5, excuse me. But still, that's some recognition there.
He's making a difference. And I think people are starting to listen. I think it helps that you have one of the best defensive ends in Hamilcar Rashed, and then you have one of the best receivers Blittenkoff Award watch lists in Isaiah Hodgins, and you've got a strong quarterback in Luton. And I think
Jefferson's back as well.
Jefferson's back. Pierce is doing great. Bradford's able to be healthy. BJ Baylor gets some great touches. You have that phenomenal catch of Champ Flemings versus Cal Poly for a guy who's nearly double his size. So things like that, I think, are what people start. They're like, oh, yeah, okay, I kind of see where they've started to develop, because it's always been just Oregon State.
Yeah.
And I think people were expecting one more rebuild year at least. And I had someone ask me, should Smith be afraid for his job? And I think this was after the Utah game, headed into the Cal game. Yeah, this was after Utah headed into Cal. And I was like, no, I don't think he should be afraid. I think that people understand we're a patient fan base.
Yeah.
There's a level of patience that comes with rebuilding. But then I was just blown away when they went ahead and just put the smack down and beat Cal, and I was like, dang, okay, we're in a really good spot. And then
putting things behind them.
Yeah, exactly. And the team,
critical in sports.
I love that you brought up how the team has that. They line up, they do all of their warm-ups together, it counts out, they're chanting together, and it feels like it's shifted back to what it used to be.
Every player's treated equally right now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's important in sports.
And I think as someone who's watched the team for a long time, that's what kind of got lost the last few years. You didn't see a lot of that unity. You didn't see a lot of ego checking at the door. You didn't see a lot of, we've all got to play gritty. And that Smith has done an amazing job of saying, no, there is no ego. There is no I. There's no individual. It's not about your stats. It's about what can we do for this team to turn around the program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any thoughts about Arizona, about the game in Arizona specifically?
Arizona, one group that always goes unnoticed. I mean, in football in general, because they're not the exciting group to watch, are the offensive line.
Right.
The gaps they're opening for our running backs are incredible. Blake Randall, especially, Gus Lavaka.
That pair is amazing.
Senior. They've been unbelievable this season, and it will be huge against a Washington defense that has led the Pac-12 in the past 3 seasons. However, this year, it's looking a little different. They still have the best cornerback core probably in the Pac-12 other than Jalen Johnson of Utah and Miles Bryant and Elijah Molden. Shout out Wesleyan. They are one of the most consistent defensive back units in the nation. Year after year, players are drafted from this program.
Right.
But the one game where Isaiah Hodgins has played a top-tier, possibly first-round draft pick in Jalen Johnson in the future was shut down. He had catches. He had moments. However, he will be seeing this again in Miles Bryant and Molden, possibly switching off on him. And that should be interesting to see, a real matchup there and seeing how we can spread the field and balance in terms of run game and passing game as well.
I agree. I think that's something that people have to be aware of. That's tough, is we're over the hump of the middle of the season. People knew Hodgins was going to be good last year. People knew he was going to be good the year before. People knew he was going to be good when he was recruited, graduated early from high school, and started spring ball with Oregon State. People knew he was going to be pretty special, but I don't think people understood how well he was going to use his frame, how smart he is on the field, the chemistry level that he has with Luton. And I think that, as beneficial as it is to the team, could be a chink in the armor. That's where a problem can arise because people know now. People are not stupid. They've been watching. They know that he's on the watch list, that he's being looked at, that it's very possible that he doesn't come back for senior season because he gets drafted into the NFL. Those are all high possibilities.
Yeah.
But within that, defenses know what to watch now. There's enough film, there's enough tape, there's enough experience, there's enough things to look at for the season to know how do we guard him. So I think that's going to be the tough part for the Oregon State team as well. Smith being an OC in his past, and I think our OC in general, is talking about how do we have some kind of change-ups that give Hodgins opportunities, but also who else can we rely on? Who else can we put into the position of receiver that's going to make those plays when Hodgins can't, because he's doubled up and it's just physically impossible because they know what play to be expecting. So
no, that's a very fair point. With Washington also, speaking of this game, I feel like Oregon State's program's trending in the right direction. They've beaten some quality opponents, but Washington, despite the record at 5-4, have lost back-to-back weeks to now top 10 opponents in Oregon and Utah, who they had 2 touchdown leads to both of them at a point in the game.
And gave them up.
Yes. Jacob Eason has been great. Possible first-round draft pick, maybe this season earliest. They have a great running back as well. However, Oregon State's won on the road this season. They've only won at home once. Let one go as well. This is a serious game for them to put themselves in the bubble for like national recognition.
Oh, yeah.
Pac-12 recognition is already getting there, but the almost forgotten Pac-12 teams that kind of trend towards the bottom from the rest of the country. Beating UW at home is a huge step in that, getting over 500 too. Who knows what will happen? UW might have a little chip on their shoulder after those losses. They're still a very solid team, but we'll see what happens.
I think you're definitely right. This is, I think people are afraid to talk about it because there was kind of this thought around the Oklahoma State game about, this is going to set the tone for the season. But I think that there's a mounting pressure on this game in particular. It's a Friday night game, Friday under the lights.
In Pac-12 play, you never know what's going to happen on weeknights.
Even in our last one was also, our last Friday night game was against Oklahoma State, another really big matchup.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a later game.
Ranked now in the college football playoffs. Yeah.
And Washington's been in and out of the rankings this season.
Yeah. Start off 12.
Yeah, exactly. So strong programs in that. Not the absolute best primetime slot, but it is a Friday night, so it's hard to get an actual primetime spot.
Of course, yeah.
But
West Coast game.
Exactly. It's on FS1. And I think people are starting to be like, okay, we need to show up. I think there's an expectation an unspoken expectation in terms of the fan base that Reser should be full. Like, Reser should be as full as we've seen it in the last 3 or 4 years.
This season, yeah.
Definitely the fullest for the season, probably the fullest for the last couple of years.
Since the Civil War in 2016,
exactly,
I'd agree. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that that's going to have a major impact. And that is going to have an impact on fan morale. It's going to have an impact on player morale. It's going to have an impact on coaching morale to be able to say, hey, they've got us. We're here.
Which they haven't thought this season, it seems like, since they're 3-0 on the road. And at home, they've only won one game and hosted an FCS opponent.
Exactly.
Don't feel the love from the fans right now. What are we doing, Reser?
I know. Come on. We got to show up to Reser. And I think that's going to be a big deal. But I think it's also going to be one of those things where you kind of start like I get kind of like tingly about it, thinking about it, where you're like, oh, there's something, you're right on the precipice of something big. Like you can feel it's like when you're standing on the edge of a cliff and you're getting ready to go jump into the water. Like you can feel that like anticipation building that something big is coming. And I think that's what people are starting to feel about this game on Friday, is that it holds a lot of power. If the Beavers can pull off a win against Washington at home when they haven't won a game at home in a while, and be able an FBS game in a while.
It's been over 2 seasons.
Exactly. Being able to pull off a win like that and saying, hey, by the way, not only can we win on the road, not only are we winning against Pac-12 teams, we're beating a Pac-12 team that is one of the best in the North. Even while their record might not show it, they've played really tough teams.
Just out of the playoff 3 seasons ago.
Yeah, they've been in the talk for playoffs, not just top 25.
Went to New Year's Eve Bowl the last 2 seasons as well.
Yeah, so we're a really strong program, one of the strongest, arguably, in the North, in Pac-12 North, which is arguably stronger than the South. But within that, you got to say, man, if you can pull off this win, you're on FS1, Friday Night Lights, family weekend, team that's been on all these things. It's like the perfect mix for an underdog to be able to say, hey, we can do this. We can be the bigger team. Because as I said, the Arizona State game, that time's not getting selected. That kickoff isn't getting selected until Sunday. But it's in the talks. It will either be a 1:30 p.m. kickoff with Pac-12 or a 4:30 p.m. kickoff with FS1. That is about as prime time as it comes for a West Coast team to be able to be on Fox Sports. So I think there's definitely a mounting pressure on this.
So, adding on to your comments here, do you have a final score for this game prediction?
I don't like predictions, man.
We're gonna go with it.
Okay, so
just give me your best shot here.
I think I'm gonna
optimistic or realistic.
I think I'm gonna go on a little bit of the optimistic side.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot of factors that come into play that the team can feel that precipice. They can feel that edge. They can feel that teetering point. So I'm gonna go with, let's say, 42.
Whoa.
I think it's gonna be a pretty offensive game.
I like that call. I do.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be that the Oregon State Beaver offense is gonna really step it up. 42 to 30. We'll go 35. We'll say 35. I think it'll be offensive on both sides of the ball. I think that there will be some big plays, but Oregon State's had some higher scores on them despite having these sacks and that kind of thing. So I think it'll be close. I think it will not be a very high game. I think the other possible scores may be like 45 to 42, where you win maybe only by a field goal. Like that's how close we're talking. But I think it will be close. What would you predict for said game?
So I am going to say, typically I'm the optimistic version of the two opinions. Right. As I did call Oregon State to beat Utah. Very bold pick.
Yes, but it's bold. We like bold.
Yeah. I really want to pick Oregon State in this one just because of the situation we have here, turnout, what could come to fruition from it in a bowl game. But
no.
Washington, I'm picking to win 31-27.
Okay,
They've
so
got
close
an NFL
game.
caliber quarterback, NFL caliber players top to bottom,
Agreed.
as do Oregon State. However, they're coming off these two
I think that's going to have a difference.
Disheartening losses to Oregon and Utah with significant leads at points in the game. I think it's just too much for Oregon State in the end with Jacob Eason passing on him. He might throw a couple picks in there for how much they use him, but picking 31-27 Washington.
Awesome. All right, well, we'll kind of see how this plans out. Do you have anything else to share with our wonderful fan base, Soren?
Make sure you're at the game, please.
You heard the man. You
won't regret it. It's supposed to be beautiful, like 65, I think, and sunny.
In the middle of November, man. Like, come on, guys. That's easy.
That's unusual. We'll just put out that if you're not from Oregon and you happen to be listening to us right now.
Yes. I think that is definitely correct. All right. Do you have anything else? And we can close it out here. I think we're going to end a little bit early for all of you who aren't aware. We are dead slam in the middle of midterm season. So we had a bit of a break last week, but glad to be back this week. So we're going to end a little bit early so all of y'all can go back and we can make sure to jump back onto being students.
Well, nice to have you on again.
Yeah. It's always great. It's always great to be back.
Yeah.
Get to be back and chat with you all. Get to be back on this side of things, which is always great.
Of course.
All right. With that, we will close you back out. Make sure that you are at the game for tomorrow with both men's and women's soccer, as well as the home football game versus Washington at 7:30 p.m. Research Stadium on Friday. Can we get a go Beavs?
Go Beavs.
Go Beavs.